Well, Dr. Sam Amadi, Director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, is here to look at the federal government's position that those pardoned are still in custody and if the decision can be reviewed again in any way. That's just your first question. Glad to have you join us on Newsnight. So,
thank you.
Can they be reviewed like I just read? I was discussing with a lawyer, and the lawyer said, in the law, it's final. I don't know. What you're a lawyer too, so what's your stand? Can they be reviewed like the Minister of Justice has said?
The power to pardon is presidential prerogative. The Constitution grants the president. Although the language says in consultation, it does not require the approval of the Council of State. So people mistake, it says consults. So all that the president needs to show for procedural formality is that he has consulted with them, but it does not require approval. Again, this is a right that came from the English law and to the American Constitution. And the U.S. Supreme Court, as far back as 1886 actually, has said that it's almost like it's a plenary power. It has no limitations, provided they relate to federal offenses, offenses created by the National Assembly. That's what our own law says. But for the U.S., federal offenses. Again, so reviewability is not the president makes a decision and someone else reviews it. The Attorney General doesn't have power to review anything. But what the Attorney General may be saying, I think is right, and people are wrong. I initially thought differently, is that the president did not, unlike the U.S. president, when they said this, they show you executive order. Like the president signed a pardon for a legislator who was, Judge Santos, just a couple of days ago, the American president, I mean. And he signed executive order. So one sign is final. But if the president says, I'm going to pardon, or I have pardoned Santos, and has not signed that order, then he has not pardoned that person. So the Attorney General is correct that at this point, the president has made a statement after consulting with. But if the list is set there, that's the question now. He provides for us a different names. Then the question then is, he can subtract. He consulted with them. He has not changed, so the formality has not completed. The formality is the president signing that order. Yeah. And that's the exercise of presidential prerogative. And so the mistake people make is that they are conflating a presidential declaration and the culmination of a presidential act. Executive order of the president is to be signed because it's a power, it's constitutional, it's formal power. So if there were a list of those to be pardoned, the president has signed and said these are to be pardoned and published, and then tomorrow he comes back to say, and the Attorney General says, we're going to review it. No, they can't do that. It's the presidential power. Again, the president can also reverse excess of executive power. So the key question here is the formality. Now, beyond the legality, what CIPE is trying to say.
CPPE, you mean?
CPPE, okay? Because
I'm going to bring up their issue anyway.
Yeah. There's a distinction between the constitutional act of the president and the wise act. People mistake. Presidential power is plenary. Executive power under Section 5. Although, like in the U.S., Article 2 in the U.S. does not make it conditional on legislature. But in Nigeria, it says presidential power is as the Constitution says and as the National Assembly indicates. So maybe the National Assembly can condition presidential power if they do, maybe. But what is clear is that the presidents can act stupidly or foolishly. Presidents, not only one, but legally. So the president's exercise of that power is legal and constitutional. But the question then is, should he be pardoning drug addicts, those illegal mining? These are base criminal action. And that is an important issue in jurisprudence and in criminology. The problem of presidential pardon is that they detract from equal justice, theoretically speaking. So people commit crime. And criminal justice says punishment should go to liability, okay? So someone is convicted. And then because of lobbying, proximity to power, profile, in the case of Sanda, for example, they said the family argued, we don't even know whether they were quid pro quo, whether it's political or pecuniary. In fact, some people can buy pardon. And so people have argued that it creates unequal justice because those who have access, those who have lobbies, those who have whatever influence
Can have their way.
Can have their way. And so it has a theoretical problem with the notion of equal justice. At that point, and second, at the level of function.
But that sounds subjective, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
that's the point is that two of us committed a crime and we are equally punished. So assuming there's a guy who committed drug trafficking, 2 people, notion of justice is that equal liability for equal crime. Is that not so? The one person buys his way out. That's the level of subjective theoretical concept. But a level of
but maybe not just buying. If one person is found to be amenable to change, like the issues they raised, or people who were serving were found to be
okay, good.
Yeah.
That is a different issue. Like the idea of prerogative of mercy that miscarriage of justice occur, there are persons whose liability are notional, what you call strict liability. You didn't even know it's a crime, but it's a crime. You know what I'm saying? You go for it. Those people are crimes that do not purport intentional criminality. Maybe, again, people who have reformed themselves, evidence. So the courts, the prison authorities throw up considerations. That's a concept. But the point is this. What they are saying is that if a president pardons too many criminals, you know, there are crimes that border on moral torpidity.
Then let me bring this here, because the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise is saying that this can discourage investors' confidence. In fact, they went ahead to say that this raises a question about policy, inconsistency, contract sanctity, and investment security. Yeah. That this should be handled with the way you apply it becomes a danger. What do you make of the statement they are making?
Yeah, what they're saying is a perception, and that affects politics.
And perception is
economics. It affects, first is that they ask themselves, what kind of country do you have? Do you have a country where people can vary outcomes, whether it is conviction, whether it is criminal liability or contractual liability? Is it possible? So these things weaken the rule of law foundation important for economic economic growth and investment. So in a sense, they're right to say, if you have a country where this is most usually prerogative of mercy is extended to political criminals, people who went to treason, Muhammad Macaulay, assuming he was convicted, for maybe nationalist activity. It's not usually for
drug addicts,
drugs,
peddlers,
mining, crimes of that nature. I mean, it's like armed robbery. I mean, those kind of things are rarely on the bucket. So first, it goes to who compiled this list for the president.
Yeah, because we have those things on this list.
Yes, who compiled this? What kind of people, what kind of influence affected this? The president is busy. He's not the one who's going to go to dockets and look at cases.
But the bug stopped us.
He owns it. But I'm saying that the people who first is, if the attorney general says we made a mistake, there are some characters we shouldn't have here. The first question is, what got them there? Did people do some transactions?
Yeah.
Does that speak to the president's team? Does that speak to the competence and the tardiness? Do we have a cabal, a criminal cabal that's running racket, collecting names and fitting in there? That's the first question. To say, Mr. President, how come you didn't know this? Attorney General, how come you didn't see this list? Is it because we spoke out? The second question that people are saying, okay, what is moral signaling? The presidency is a moral office, Forget what's going on. People think, it's not just about building roads.
Yeah.
It's about changing mentality. Signal to Nigerians what matter. When the president says we are fighting corruption, he's signaling to the people that, look, this government doesn't want. And then if you're going to pardon people who are guilty of very corrupt actions, then you're undermining the messaging, the signaling. And that's the point. People sit back and say, what does it tell us about this government? So if an investor, and investors care about integrity of contracts. They care about the criminal nature of a state, whether criminals exist, but you want to make sure the state is firm with crime. But if a country is at home with criminals and they could get off from the hook easily, then the investor, they have a right to say, well, wait a minute, assuming we run into a criminal actor here who swindles us and gets jailed, and then suddenly he's out there campaigning the next day to be governor or senator because he got a principal pardon. So I think that's the point. So beyond the legality, whether the president can review it or whether Attorney General, the critical issue is what does the excess of power, though constitutional and legal, tell us about the moral foundations of governance and the moral character and the moral proposition that this president or presidency, because it's not just one person, is telling Nigerians. And so the damage has been done because people say, wait a minute, 40% drug addicts, 35% illegal miners, what the heck? Now, Monday morning quarterbacking, you come back and say, well, let's redo it. Yes, if it has not been signed off. No, if the president has already exercised it. Except you trigger new wave of executive order.
Well, this is, from what you have just said, is neither here nor there. There are so many things to look at to consider these things. Yeah. Well, the hope is that whatever happens, that the president and those in authority get to do things
thoroughly, and do it for long term. Yeah. What does it tells about the country, not just the political convenience
and the perception. Yeah. Dr. Sam Amadi, a director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, thank you for your thinking on this particular subject.